Gorgeous.
Here we go.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. So we have what we want to talk about already for
Yeah,
once.
for those of you that are listening, Morgan and I basically sign on, check in about real life stuff, and then we spend probably 30 minutes thinking about what we want to talk about. And this is something really on our mind already, which is like the best part about like when we record. I think we have the best conversations when we're talking about things that are already on our mind and what we're already wanting to share.
Last blog that I posted was about the sketchbooks that I went back into. Today's theme is going to be kind of around our own personal practice with our sketchbooks, our kind of a discography of like when we do them and when we don't do them, how they enter into our practice.
Yeah, like this kind of came up from that. Like I was really inspired by Morgan's last post about sharing a bit more about the sketchbooks, and I wanted to do the same. So, and then also in my last vlog, I went through a lot of my collage material, and there's a little bit of a connection about like,
Totally.
loose pieces of paper and things and photographs that connect to what a sketchbook also does. So there's a lot of like stuff already that's kind of leading up to this. And then also Morgan and I always talk about like this push and pull of like, what do we want to share on here? How much do we want to edit out? And that's the same with being an artist. Like, how much do we want to share online? How much do we want to share in a gallery? What is public? What's private? So there's all this stuff kind of up in the air.
And I think it's really cool because sketchbooks are kind of like the OG Instagram, but like with our hand. As I look back into them, I think about like what I did decide to hone in on. What did I decide to draw? What did I decide to paint? What did I decide to do on each page? So I think it is really revealing in many ways, but also just like it's not as much pressure. A sketchbook could be anything. There's a sketchbook project in New York City that is an entire library of sketchbooks. Have you been there?
I have not. I have heard about that, and I feel like there's multiple versions of it.
Yeah.
Like all these different projects where like some of them like they send you sketchbooks, so all the sketchbooks are like kind of unified visually, and like you're supposed to do one per day, and then some have less rules. So have you been there?
I haven't been there, but a friend of mine gave me a sketchbook to apply with. I didn't do it though last year, and so I wonder if I can still like send it in. I'd have to look that up.
Like there's a really big like question about like what else contributes to your practice, and that's what I was telling Morgan before we started recording. Like that's what's always so interesting to me. I'm like borderline obsessed with it. Like using Morgan as an example, like obviously we all love like the finished paintings, but I just love everything else that kind of coexists with the final work, and then all the stuff I want to know what I don't know about. And I don't know when you started it, but that blog spot where there's stuff about you were writing about like being at Montserrat in undergrad, and stuff leading up to your thesis show. There's stuff from the color workshop class where you were collaging. Like I was like, wow, okay. You start to connect these dots about what goes on kind of privately and what contributes to finished final works that I find so interesting. Like maybe because I'm like a nosy person. Like I just want to know like all the things. Like, what are you
Kevin,
thinking about?
everyone is a nosy person.
Yeah, I
So
embrace.
the actual sketchbook itself is like, ooh, I shouldn't look into that book, right?
I
Like
love that
that.
feeling.
Yes. It's like seeing someone's journal and being like, I really shouldn't, but I'm going to
Okay,
anyways. But with
this is like
sketchbook,
a really crazy side note, but I've like always been really nosy. Like well, before I left for California 6 months ago, I don't really see my sister that often. We just never really see each other.
yeah,
And I saw her before I left, kind of as a goodbye thing. And I told her that like I used to go through her phone all the time, and like I told her like, oh, I knew
that's
you were getting back with your ex like 6 months before you were public about it because I saw like all the texts and everything. She's like, what are you talking about? It's like I used to go through your phone. Like I'm so
Evan.
nosy.
That's
Yeah.
another level.
Oh yeah, I was
Eh,
just like dying laughing. Like I don't know what's wrong with me. Like I just am so like I need to know what's going on.
Oh my gosh, were you just like so obsessed with Post Secret when that was like really popular?
I forget what's the other one that's like where people like send you anonymous questions. Post secret is like where you like the user is posting whatever they want and it's
Yeah,
their secret is shared anonymously,
it's
right?
shared. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a bad thing, but I just thought that would be a funny little
I do
story
think that
to tell.
yeah. Wow.
And I mean, I was like a kid. Like my
I
sister
know.
is 12 years older than me, so she's 40 years old now. So
Yeah.
it was a long
Well,
time ago, like when I was a rebellious teenager.
yeah. Well, whenever I'm with you, you have full permission to just go through my phone for like fun if you want.
What
Is
was great about it was like it was so long ago. Thank God. Like, I mean, if it
that she
was like
wasn't mad.
and she was just laughing. She's like, "Oh my God, like I don't even know what like there could have been some really like dirty things." I'm like, No, it was like pretty boring actually." And she was like, "Oh my God."
She is thinking like she's so scandalous and you're like boring, like
Next.
next.
Anyone else's phone available?
Anyone else? Oh my gosh.
That
You
was
have
me as a teenager.
yeah, okay. Okay. So the sketchbook is kind of like the next like safest level, but I completely see the correlation and the parallels and having it be this like secret moment. And like
Mhm.
even when I'm looking back in my own sketchbooks, I'm like, wow, this is really revealing to what you were just doing at the time. But also
Yeah.
most of my sketchbooks I don't want people to go through because they also have really personal little pieces of writing in them that may or may not be I mean I honestly haven't dived fully into them, but a lot of my
And
sketchbooks have personal like almost journal writings in them as well. I think whenever I'm ready to like write something down, I just grab what's available and I'm like I'll write what I need to write and then move on.
mhm.
And that's yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, there definitely are things like I think I shared on Instagram that like every month I write a letter to Devin, and those are all like, basically in a pile, like a big stack. Like I would never share those. I mean, I guess he could share them if he wanted to, but I'd rather he didn't. um,
Wow.
and then
Yeah.
I do a lot of like gratitude writing and writing about goals. I don't think I would share those either.
uh,
So there's definitely some writing. And oddly enough, I keep it separately. Like I have a separate, it's like a bright orange, like lined notebook that I do all that stuff in.
yeah.
And it doesn't connect to like my quote unquote
Okay.
like art sketchbook,
Yeah.
whatever the fuck that means.
Right. But like honestly, like I didn't mean to laugh when like you were talking about how that you're like, oh, mine has all like mindfulness and like goal writing in mine. I don't think I'd want people to see those. And I'm like, I'm looking at mine and mine are like really dark, but I completely understand how like there are some really personal moments that in the actual sketchbook portion that has art, it could be revealing in one way, but then the writing feels so much different, a separate feeling for both. But are they
Yeah.
really that different? Is my question.
For me, I think that they are different, but I think it's probably who I am that's putting a lot of separation on how I define all these different things. And I'm assuming you and I are different in this way, but I actually have a hard time with sketchbooks because I admire them, and like I think that they're beautiful objects, and like there's like a certain level of like maybe that I can't attain that or something, or pressure to attain that, that makes me feel intimidated about even trying.
Oh, me too.
So
Yeah.
like this sketchbook that I have in front of me, I've had for 10 years and it's still not full. Like
Oh, me too.
I don't reach for it a lot. And like the way I utilize it, I think is actually very different than the way other artists use their sketchbooks. But I think that's why we're here, to talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, I
Maybe I'm
mean,
wrong.
no, I think that like everyone uses them very differently. I could say I'm using this sketchbook before every single painting, or every single time I'm working on a big, large painting, I'm going to document each color that I'm using. And that's going to be the color sketchbook. Like I could do stuff like that. And there have been many moments in my life, in my day to day, that I wish I had. And
Why?
if my memory does go at some point in my life, it would be really nice to have these documented moments, so
Hmm.
that maybe it could get me back. That's so morbid, but I do have this
Well,
fear I'm gonna have like Alzheimer's or dementia. So
yeah.
yeah.
I like you and I, it's like trouble because we always take these detours, but I just feel like I have to say that I feel similarly. Like my mom has a lot of trouble remembering things,
Mhm.
and I always have that worry too,
Yeah.
like that I'm gonna like forget who I am, forget. So yeah, without going too far down there, I really relate to that.
Yeah, totally. I think too now, not to always bring this up, but the current job that I'm in, I am working with an artist who's 87 and has been an artist her entire life. And she has sketchbooks on sketchbooks and journals on journals that I have spent a couple of sessions with her going through, and just to get some revealing formulas for paint that we are trying to find the mixtures to, that
She has them in the
yeah,
sketchbook. That's
she
so
has
cool.
tons.
Ah,
All she does is that what she'll do is she'll take the color that she's using in her um in the painting that she's working on and put it on a piece of tape, and then put the tape in the sketchbook, so that, and then she writes on the piece of tape what combination of colors she used for that specific strip.
that's so cool.
I know, it's so cool. She's trying to remember what happens with specific transparencies. She has specific sketchbooks that just have strips of color in it with all of the, and she has boards. She has actual panels of wood with this on it too. She'll create them for herself.
We're
Years.
talking about like truly using a sketchbook as a tool
Yeah.
and not as like an other thing, like that is really interesting and something I don't do at all.
No,
And
exactly.
I feel like similar to how you feel, I feel like it would be really useful for me because what I do, it actually references the way like traditional pointillism operated and why it
Yes.
existed.
Yes.
Like color theory is very different when it's applied in the way that I apply it. Like we're not talking about like
Yeah.
layering flat color over flat color or a color next to color. It's like tiny increments of color stacked on
Right.
top of each other. And still, like I've been working this way for 10 years and I still don't really know how it operates. Like, I think that in my head, it's gonna like when I apply like a yellow background with orange dots and then purple dots over the orange, that it's gonna look a certain way. And then I do it and I spend hours doing it. And
Yeah.
it doesn't look the way I thought.
Oh,
That's purely like a color theory thing that
it's 100%. Yeah.
I don't have down in my brain. I struggle a lot with color. And I think if I had tools like that, like Rose, she's a true colorist,
Yes, she is.
where
Yeah.
like color swatches in my notebook where I actually did that. Like I had like a
Mhm.
little square of like orange with the yellow dots and the purple on top. And then I wrote out like, don't do this.
Yes.
And it would
Yeah.
like help a lot, but I
Yeah.
don't. Every time I start a new painting, it's like kind of a guessing game.
I also do that. Like in this specific one, I just have these two colors and it says working with medium and paint. You don't want to rush. Mix until fully folded. Can't add too much medium or it will take away from the color if that's what you want to achieve. There's just
Yeah.
so many different ways you could doodle mindlessly. You could play with color. You could be a colorist. You could use it as a tool for your own for an animation practice.
As you were talking, I wrote
Yeah.
down, should we already know how to use a sketchbook?
Mm.
Like sometimes it seems like people just like it's like breathing, like they just automatically know. And I've never
They
felt that.
know.
It's
Me
always been
neither.
like forced, like maybe I could ask Morgan how she uses it, and then it would help me figure out how to learn how to use it. Like I don't feel like a natural ability to use a sketchbook to kind of get the magic that we're talking about, like using it as a tool. Or
Yeah.
for me, the sketchbook has always been, at least the way I define it in my brain, very other. Like it's just a totally different thing that's connected, but what I do in there is different. And sometimes it feels so different that I should just be spending time on the other things, which is why I don't pick it up a lot.
Wow. I actually have very similar feelings, but I'm curious to what the other is for you in the sketchbooks, like what you use your sketchbook for exactly. I'm very curious now.
Well, it's changed through the years, and like because my thoughts and feelings change, like when you're struggling to define like what you want it to be and then also what you think it should be. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I've tried doing like little color swatches. The problem, I do need to mention this because I think it's important, because I've discovered it and I know this about myself over the years of using sketchbooks, that I always use collage in my paintings. Like I love the medium of collage, and a lot of times what happens when I'm like experimenting and playing in a sketchbook or even trying to use it as a tool is that I end up liking what I'm doing in the sketchbook, so I rip it out and then I collage it on a
Into the
painting.
painting.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's cool.
that's and maybe that's actually a good thing. Maybe that's like
Yeah.
how a sketchbook is supposed to operate for me. Like something is born in this book, and if I like it, it makes its way on a painting. That's to me, it's not, when I say that out loud, it doesn't sound as exciting as like what
Yeah.
Rose does or what you've done. But
Well, she does a
like,
lot of things.
yeah, like maybe that's just because that happens a lot. I know that about myself. If I did what I described to you, like I painted the orange square, did the color swatch, did the yellow dots, the purple, and if I ended up liking it, I would cut it out and put it on a painting. 100%.
Oh my
I wouldn't keep
gosh.
it in the book. Um, so what I end up using a lot of the sketchbook for is like a lot of loose, like gestural drawing, and usually I force myself to use material that I know I would never use
Hmm.
in a painting. So this is what I'm talking about, how it's so different, is like a lot of in my sketchbook there's like highlighter drawings, there's crayon. I use a lot of crayon. Like I
Mhm.
would never use crayon in my painting, at least not right now.
Mhm.
And so when you force yourself to change the media that you're using, and it's not on like a canvas or a panel, like you're changing all these different things, the end result is going to look different. So a lot of these like colored pencil sketches are really like loose and um, you know, just like different. Like
Wow. Yeah,
I
totally
don't know that
different.
I would necessarily show these. Maybe. I don't know, but I think when I look at this, like it looks too different from what I do to feel confident in showing it. I do this kind of thing sometimes, like sketches for like other paintings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like I was gonna do, there was one time where I was gonna do like these like shaped panels.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Yeah.
and this page literally says edge, and it says where trains used to be. I don't know why. And I'll do stuff like this,
I
like
love it.
this. If you've seen any photo of my studio from the last like however many years, this has been hung up in my studio in every single space. This is
I
like
recognize that
this
piece.
is like my favorite drawing I've ever done in my life. It's like painted this entire back, it bled through the front, like weird colored, almost like Heather Day, like color pencil scribbles, graphite. Like I love this and I want to like frame it just as is.
Oh
So
my gosh. When are you going to do that? You should do that soon.
sometimes that happens and that's really
Yeah.
inspiring. Like, what if actually I pushed the sketchbook stuff to be its own thing? And like, what if it just deserves its own space? Like, I genuinely like, I love this as much
Well,
as
okay. So let me just be so bold as to saying you already do. It
what do you mean?
already is its own thing. You
Yeah.
already have, right? Like, I don't think it's one of those things where it's implemented in our practice so much where we think about it all the time, which makes it a little bit more out of reach to consider as an operating piece of our practice. So we're so separated from it that we forget that it's an actual thing. Like that's when I mean, like when we open up our sketchbooks and we see what we've done, we're like, this is its own thing. This isn't our
Mm-hmm.
work. It's like almost so separated from our practice to the point
Yeah.
where we don't understand that it actually already is an operating system. We're just not
Yeah.
putting our day-to-day energy into it.
There's a line somewhere, I know there is, because like as much as it's like exciting and cool to look through sketchbooks, like you mentioned Rose like has drawn a lot of like cats in her sketchbooks. I
Yeah.
know like Rose would never show those cat drawings
No.
in a show. So where do they belong? And like
Right, right.
how much do you share? And I don't know, those questions are
Yeah.
really interesting. I'm still figuring them out for
Yeah.
myself.
And I guess that's up to us. Recently, I went to Mass Mocha to see, I'm going to just botch his name. So I'm going to Google it really quick. Blaine de St. Croix. He did an entire floor, and the show was called How to Move a Landscape. But it was
Mm,
basically a large series of, you know, of work that were sculptural, they were installations. It related everything together, like society, politics, science, everything that you can think of. And it was his explorations all throughout like the Arctic Circle. And what he had was there were display cases of all of his sketchbook like ideas and um, drawn out sketches of the Arctic, drawn sketches of plant life in the Arctic that he found, to specific plant life that he ended up pressing into the paper, all sorts of different stuff. And I was just out of my mind with this section.
like what I'm thinking about a lot is like I know I have the desire to see everything,
Mm,
but not everyone has the desire to share everything. Like if I'm
mm,
really checking in and being honest with myself, I kind of do want to see Rose's cat drawings,
yeah.
but I know for a fact she wouldn't exhibit them. So there's a
Mhm.
conundrum there. Like,
There is.
yeah, about
Yeah.
what you decide to make and then what you decide to share.
Yeah.
And to your point, like it's gonna be different for everybody. I think as an artist, if you can justify um, its relevance and importance, then of course you're going to be more inclined to share the sketchbook stuff. I think nowadays, like maybe it's just a weird pressure I put on myself. I feel like I want everything that I make to be like exhibition worthy,
Mm.
kind of problematic, but I'm actively trying to kind of push back against that, which hence why I'm using crayons and like these weird materials. Like, I just want to force myself to do something completely different. Like, where does my hand even want to go? Like, if I pick up a green crayon and I use it for 5 minutes, like, what color am I going to reach for next? Like this uncharted territory thing is what I would like to use my sketchbook for. And that's been a place that's been working the best. Like when I look through these sketchbooks, like it's the first time in my life I felt no desire to rip them out. And that's like a first. Like
Mm,
this little thing, color pencil thing can just exist in the book. And
mm.
it has like, all these weird materials that I actually wouldn't collage. And I don't feel like it needs to be a finished work. It's just in my sketchbook. And that's like where I've wanted to be for such a long time.
We do realize that things are not as precious and they don't need to be used all of the time.
Yeah.
But my question to that, you had been mentioning how you're keeping things in and you're able to use different materials and you feel like you have more permission to do that within the sketchbook. But what makes that different from a piece of work for you? Like, how come it's easier? How come it's easier to do that in the sketchbook than it is on a canvas or something like a piece of paper that you're actually making a work on?
Sometimes like I feel like I'm the wrong person to ask because my perception of so many other artists is that they have figured out the sketchbook thing. And a lot of times I just feel like I'm taking shots in the dark. Like, I guess this is what a sketchbook is supposed to be. And there's beauty in that, like just trying things and seeing what sticks. Like the fact that I was trying to use a sketchbook for whatever reason and then ripping out a lot of the pages and using it as collage materials. Actually, it's cool. Like I honor that time in my life, but I think that for again, whatever reason, I really wanted a sketchbook to maintain the book form. And I knew that there was a desire to rip stuff out and make it exhibition worthy. So I was asking myself, what could I do that would prevent me from wanting it to be this like beautifully presented thing? And the only thing I could think of is like the media that I was using for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Acrylic paint is like the top tier thing. Like that's like
That's your
for
main
me,
medium for
yeah.
you. Yes.
And so I'm like kind of reaching for other things. And then I think also it's time. Like in my mind, there's something about time with sketchbooks. Like, how can I make this more gestural? What if I put like a 10-minute limit? If this is a sketchbook purely for myself, what if I use the material I never used? And what if I gave myself 10 minutes? What would happen? And I don't do any of that stuff when I make a painting. Like the paintings could take 5 years. They could, the way I work is very different. The
Yeah.
way I work, time, and the media, there's separation there.
Yeah. Well, I ask because I do the same thing in my sketchbooks. I use pastel, I use crayon,
How come you
and
don't use those things in your finished works?
yeah, I think the same reason. I think that I'm exploring something different and on a different scale and whatever.
Hmm.
And not to say that I'm not going to use those things in a larger piece one day. I'm very open to that idea. I think just at this stage in my painting, I'm very interested in what I'm focused on and how to manipulate acrylic paint. It feels like that's where I'm living right now in that space. But within the sketchbook,
Yeah.
I do like over the summer. I was I know it was COVID, but I kind of was going a lot of different places along the coast just to get out of town and safely get out of town. And so my sketchbook was actually really a big tool for me because it was something I could travel with and not,
Yeah.
I didn't have the energy to like make huge paintings during that time. So I was like, oh, I can't wait to hit up all the different art stores and buy different materials and get excited about a different material. And it was
Mhm.
really honestly giving myself permission to be excited about doing something else rather than feeling guilty for not doing what I think I should be doing, like what my identity is as a large scale painter.
Yeah, that's way better said than my answer. That really like helped me kind of understand my own understanding of the shift between the two. I also think there's one last thing I wanted to mention about it, which is like the limitation of the material itself. Like when as I was thinking more about your question, like it's harder, like I have used past chalk pastel and colored pencil and things like that in my paintings. Um, but it involves a smidge more work. Like
It does.
collage and acrylic painting kind of go hand in hand for me. Like I'm using matte medium, which is clear acrylic paint, as the glue to apply the collage, and I'm sealing it with acrylic paint, and I'm applying more acrylic paint. And it just happens so fluidly, where if I incorporate something else, like colored pencil, it has to happen first. Like you can't use colored pencil over acrylic paint. So it has to be on like kind of raw paper, then collaged on, or chalk pastel. Like you have to spray it and seal
Yeah.
it.
Well, it as like
And
requires a studio, like it requires
yes,
the specific space.
yeah.
And yeah,
And I don't feel any interest in using acrylic paint in my sketchbook similarly for limitations. Like I have to wait for it to dry. I can't close it till it's dry. Like, and I'm more interested in using, these drawing
dry
materials.
materials.
And so that's something to touch on, is just the
Totally.
limitations of
Yeah.
materials. Yeah.
Yeah, like over the summer I was like I'm going to use charcoal again and do some charcoal drawings and pastel, and then I was like, well, and I had all this stuff in my cart at this really small little art shop, and I was like, well, looks like I'm carrying around fixative in my backpack for the rest of the summer because that's what I'm going to need in order to seal all of this in my sketchbook. And
Yeah.
it wasn't as much of a pain as I thought it was going to be because it was summer and I could just have the sketchbook open and spray it and be done.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. I actually have acrylic paintings like in my sketchbooks that I had done in many different places. And thankfully, like they're all done outside and I guess for that is like a completely separate type of practice, right? Like, and when I'm outside and using paints in a sketchbook outside, they do end up drying really quickly. So, but I completely understand that like fixation on keeping materials dry so that you can just move on if you want to. Yeah, I kind of wanted to also go back to how you were like talking about how what you think you need to do in a sketchbook versus just being fluid and doing whatever you want without limitations or expectations of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I completely relate to I'm so intimidated by a blank page in a sketchbook. It actually does take some practice for me to loosen myself up. You can see it in the sketchbooks themselves. You can see how tight I
Mm.
am in the beginning and what I might have wanted the sketchbook to be. And then as it starts to open up and be its own thing, that's where the magic really starts to happen. Um,
Yeah.
and I just find that really interesting how we like already put an idea to a sketchbook before we even start. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, how would you define what your sketchbook is for you?
I feel actually like a sense that they'll disappear. I don't know why. There's this like moment that I have with it's like so funny how like one tiny book that you buy holds so much weight to it. Like in my mind, when I look at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, if this ever leaves me, I will die. And I don't feel that way towards a painting sometimes, even like, but even when I first buy, like, I remember I first bought this book in Vermont Studio Center. I had taped a picture of Vermont Studio Center to the front so that you could know where I bought it. And I bought this specific sketchbook because I really liked the size of it. It was much bigger than a regular small moleskin. And this is definitely a visual podcast for those who are
I know,
listening.
yeah. What
So
Morgan's holding up, probably it looks like larger than 8.5 by 11 for sure.
it's
And
definitely
and the other one is probably like, I don't know, a 5 by 7 or
5
something.
by 7 and like a 15 by like 12 or something like that.
Okay, I was
And
close.
you were really close. Yeah. So this was it. Yeah. Anyway, so when I first got this, I remember thinking there's so much pressure. I really liked the color. I liked that it was different. And I just really liked the paper as well. It was just not, it was really nice paper inside, but not, you could probably do all mediums. Anyways, when I first, let me just try to explain myself. When I first got this, it's like anytime I get a sketchbook, it's like it stares at me for a while and I'm super intimidated by it, but I also already see it as so much magic before I put anything in. And I don't think it's magic that's going to be coming from me. It almost feels like it's from something else.
There might be something about like how we perceive the book itself, like because you mentioned early on in this conversation
Mm.
about it kind of telling a story, and if you forget something, if you forget who you are, you could open it up and it would tell a
Yeah.
story of
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like our perception about, like, I think the book format, like turning a page and wanting the story to
Yes.
advance.
Oh my gosh, you just nailed it. Honestly, my feelings about Instagram go hand in hand at times. I was talking to my therapist this morning about I only post the things on Instagram when I'm doing the thing. Like, I don't use Instagram for any other purpose other than to show people what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
almost like proving to other people that I'm an artist, that like I'm getting things done, and when I'm not posting anything, it doesn't mean that I'm not doing anything. It's just what I choose to share. And I
Yeah.
think when I open this sketchbook, I feel like I want to be able to tell the right story. It is a very similar feeling of perception. It's perception of myself. It's perception of what others are going to do if they end up looking in this. Honestly, like Rose, when I first started working with her, asked to see my sketchbook.
Oh, that's
She's
really
like,
interesting.
do you have your sketchbook with you? Can I look at it? And I was like,
That is so
no.
interesting. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I asked her why. And she was like, I think
Yeah.
you get to know a person so much based on their sketchbook. And I was like, ew, this is terrible sketchbook that I'm showing you.
Oh my God. I can honestly tell you, nobody's looked at my sketchbook. Not a
Uh,
single. I would just be too, like, I just showed you some cool little like drawings, but there's like weird shit. Like,
yeah. Okay. I have these drawings from meditations that I've done. There's a sheep. There's a random sheep. I don't know if you can see that.
yeah, I can see it mostly.
It just inside it says draw. Like I was drawing like from visions that I was getting through meditations. Like that shit's weird. No one wants to see that. But like, and it's I don't know. It's pretty revealing, but also if anyone were to look at this, they wouldn't understand. Thinking of you. So for those of you who aren't just watching this, Kevin just showed me a beautiful page that just says thinking of you in like bubble letters that he drew.
Yep. I'm like just showing the things that are like Yeah, this just says want, like over and over.
But like with a beautiful, like with a beautiful piece of art, like surrounding it. Like at least
Yeah,
you have like worthy. Oh, I do have Rue drawings. Of course, he's my new man.
so cute. When I have done this quite a bit. Uh, this is so funny. Why did we do this? But it's actually like one of the most romantic things I've done in my life. um,
Whoa.
Devin, I'm exaggerating. I'm hyping it up too much, but
I think
Devin and
I
I had like the same pack of crayons, and I was like, I'm gonna draw you, and you can draw me.
yes, I
Like
love that.
this is me drawing him, and then like this is him drawing me.
Oh my gosh, so different.
I know.
I actually love that so much. One of my favorite exercises with anyone, romantic or not romantic, is doing blind contour with each other.
Oh yeah.
So like you
Yeah.
just are staring at each other and drawing and not looking down at the page. And it's just such a fun, romantic little thing to do.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, hearing actually both of us talk about what our sketchbooks are and what we want them to be, like, I'm kind of looking at mine, I guess, with more appreciation, I think, like
Yes.
as I'm sharing, because I don't think I've shared this with anyone actually. Um, Obviously I had to share like the book itself with Devin for him to draw in it, but I don't think I showed him any of the pages. It's just
Mm,
interesting. Like,
it is interesting. So you asked me what my sketchbooks are, and I said they were precious, um, at first intimidating because of what story is going to go in them. Hey, what novel am I writing that's going to go in this, essentially,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, but then the pressure definitely gets released somewhere through the pages. And for
yeah.
you, I think both of our relationship has changed the sketchbook, but what do you think it is for you now?
I
Sorry.
think it'd be in a lot of ways easier just to tell you what I want the sketchbook to be, but I will try and answer your question as it was asked. um, wow, that's actually a really hard
Isn't it
question.
hard?
I think my sketchbook is a way to explore something different with no pressure and giving myself the freedom, the
Mhm.
space, the time to, yeah, explore something different with no pressure. Like, this isn't on Instagram. It never has to be. I don't need to show anyone. It's not going to be sold. It's not going to be exhibited unless I want it to be. And there's a lot of freedom and excitement in that. So I would say mostly that's what the sketchbook is. That's kind of where I've arrived. Is like,
Yeah,
I don't even
I
know
think
what's
that's
going to
great.
happen with these crayons. Like, I'm just going to use them and see. And sometimes cool things happen. Sometimes it's more about just marking a memory. Like, I remember
Right.
laying in bed with Devin and doing those drawings vividly, like
Yeah,
vividly.
exactly. Yes. Some of these pages take you right back to that moment. You can
Yeah,
even smell and taste and hear the things that were around you. You know exactly where you were sitting and kind of like how you felt and what you thought of and how tired you were, or whatever. This is just my own, but
yeah.
yeah.
I when I was thinking about going back to school, I never thought I would go back to school. And I was just contemplating what I wanted to do next. Like a lot of people interested in going back to school or going to school in general,
Mhm.
you do research. And I have this page of like all this research of different schools I was looking at, and a master's degree compared to like a certificate thing. And as I was writing this, I probably was like, why is this in my sketchbook? Like, but for some reason I grabbed it and
Yeah.
I wanted it to be there. And I actually love this page because I remember sitting on the living room floor writing these little notes, and I just finished this master's program like 2 weeks ago, and like I haven't seen this page since, for like two
Oh,
years.
yes.
And it has a lot of boring stuff like pros and cons and how much it costs and stuff. But in the corner here, it says nothing worthwhile comes easy. Just because.
Wow. Just because that you probably needed to like hear that as you're comparing and contrasting all of these different numbers and schools.
Yeah,
That's really sweet. I found a sketchbook from 2012 from like
that's
college.
in 12. Okay, yeah. That
And I,
yep.
yeah, and it was from a sketchbook class that I took.
I
And
took that too
so,
with Diane, right?
oh, actually mine with Diane or was it with Rob
Well,
Roy? Mine was with Rob Roy,
you know
I
what?
think.
Yeah, because I think Diane, that was like either her first time teaching it
Yeah.
or she hadn't taught it in a while. It was
Yeah.
called the artist notebook. Yeah,
Yeah. See, I took that with, yeah, with I think Rob
with Rob.
Roy. Yes.
Cool.
And in the first on the first page, he told us to write down to write what we want this sketchbook to be.
Hmm.
So I would like to read it so you know what 2012 Morgan wanted her sketchbook to be.
Yeah.
I love many things. But for this class, to start off the sketchbook, I want to use it for ideas for paintings or prints because I was into printmaking at the time, whether it's for other classes or random ideas. Using color studies, sketches for the abstract, using real forms and abstracting them. I will paste ideas for visuals as well and document my writing journal while I work. These are the things I want to get inspired by. Nature, abstract, color, studies, design, multiples, collage, raw canvas, watercolor, movement, paint, mini plants, and mountains.
Love it. I feel
Oh.
like what is it like reading that now? Like, do you feel like what you wanted is any way similar to what you want it to be now?
Well, I think it's very informative to the things
Yeah.
that I still care about. I think it's funny to hear like raw canvas because it's not something I was really doing at the time. And now I'm really working with raw canvas a lot. Movement,
Mm.
the same thing. And this was 2012. So that means this was the year before I graduated. Did I graduate 2013? Yes.
I think so,
So
yeah.
so like mini plants. Like so I hadn't even like that in my senior thesis I worked a lot with mini plants and succulents, things like that. So I think it was really just like informing what I wanted to explore and in this stage in our schooling, we started to become more we had more freedom to start doing what we wanted to do at this time. It's super sweet that I wanted to keep things in a very like structured way in this class. And as I look through the sketchbook, I didn't really stray too much from what I wanted. And it was almost like intention. I was setting like intentions for this book. And as I set those
Yeah.
intentions, they were all there for me. And this is the only sketchbooks I have every single page is filled.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, but
Yeah.
before I ask it, and also before we get too far away from Artist Notebook,
Yeah.
I also took that class and I bought a sketchbook specifically for it.
Yeah.
And, it was a struggle because I think I felt the same way I feel now, which is like general confusion about
Yeah.
what I wanted the sketchbook to be and like how it kind of fit into what I was already doing. And
Yeah.
so I can tell you the sketchbook cover to cover were basically these individual paintings, like these kind of really refined not just painting, drawings and paintings and collages that function as like finished work. So you could turn the page and see another
Yes.
finished work. And it was a little disappointing actually,
Mhm.
because it was so curated and I never really let go. Um, and to support that thought even further, I ripped out every single page and I exhibited them and I sold the pages from the
What?
sketchbook. Like, so
Wow.
it's just a little interesting to note that like I went into it thinking I was going to make these individual finished works, ended up ripping them out of the sketchbook anyway, showing them and sold some. Like, that's
I
not really, a sketchbook can be anything you want, but that's not what I envision a sketchbook to be.
Okay. It's so interesting. Like that was going to be one of my questions too, is like what happens when every single piece is like this refined, gorgeous piece of artwork? What do you do then? And you just
Sell,
answered
sell,
it.
sell.
Sell, 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 baby.
Yeah, and
I mean,
actually
but
you
yeah.
can see the whole sketchbook. You can see the whole sketchbook on my website. I forget what year it was, but
Oh,
I
fun.
also documented and scanned every page, like the ones that sold, say sold, like they're basically just finished fucking paintings. Like that's
Oh
not,
my God. Yeah.
it's not really what I, so my question, I just want to tell my little artist notebook story, but
Yeah.
my
Yeah, please.
question, since you talked about what you wanted your sketchbook to be in 2012, like what do you want it to be in 2021?
I want it to be whatever the fuck I want it to be. I want to draw little moments of my life. I want to take it with me wherever I go. I want to, if I'm sitting and hanging out with Max, I want to take it out and draw his cute little face. And I want to draw his feet and his shoes and the things around us. I want to fill it with notes about what I'm seeing, visuals of my daily life, like the way the light is hitting on the trees at that time, or um yeah, that's what I want it to be. I want it to be these moments so I can capture them, like not just whipping out my phone and taking a picture, but really spending time with these
Yeah,
moments so that I can look back and know exactly what that is for me, what day that was, what, I also log the day, when I do things, so I do know which day I drew
yeah,
them. And I'm not saying that I haven't done these things. Like I have drawn his cute little face and his shoes and his bed. Like, as sometimes I'm sitting in his room and I'll just take up my sketchbook and draw, like his bedpost is like very elaborate and I still haven't gotten it down, but I will. It's so hard to draw because there's so many
that's
different,
so
like, yeah.
cool.
So these are like just little like in between moments of our life that I want to capture, I guess.
I think that's beautiful. Really well said.
Thanks.
Um, and I wrote a lot of what you said down for myself
Yeah,
to um, to add to what I want my sketchbook to be.
right.
Also,
Like it is different looking at some of these sketchbooks from like 2012 to like 2014, and I really have a great hand at drawing. Like my actual skills
hmm,
were a lot higher than they were now, just because we were in training, like we were in classes that were teaching us how to do it,
yeah,
and like it's been years since I've really tapped back into that. So I do want to also, I would like to say, like I'd like to get back into more realistic drawings, which I do. Like that's how I use my sketchbook mostly
isn't that
now.
so? Like, I was so well. We're early on in this project, but like I
Mhm.
promise if you're listening now and you continue to listen, you will know that I am like the most rebellious person you'll ever meet. Like I say no just for fun sometimes. Like
Oh
just
my
like
God.
I was so resistant to life drawing. I'm like, I am an abstract painter. I will not draw observationally. Like I just and
Why?
I don't
It's
know.
so funny.
I'm so Devin will tell you, I'm like the
Yeah.
most stubborn person. Like I feel like I know who I am and what I want, and
Oh my God.
I don't entertain anything else. And I actually was really good at drawing observationally. I had a natural skill for it. And now I have an appreciation for it. And I do it sometimes. I mean, I
Mm,
just showed you the silly drawing of Devin, and
yeah.
um, there I've drawn Devin many times. Like I did a sketch of him when he was watching a movie. It was like perfect. He was staying still. I've drawn him like on my iPad, and I've actually posted that online. Like I I have a new appreciation for drawing from life that took a bit of like time to kind of arrive at.
Totally.
And I think it's beautiful to kind of do what we do, which is like this abstract, non-objective,
Mhm,
really focused on like color,
mhm,
um, and then pair it like maybe in a sketchbook, maybe not, um, with these like observational
mhm.
drawings or paintings or whatever. Like there's a magic that I feel now that I didn't feel as a student when I do it, like when I'm drawing Devin, when I'm trying to draw
Yes.
shoes or a bedpost, like just for myself, that I really enjoy now. I just thought that
Yes.
was worth noting.
Yeah. It's almost
Yeah.
like we have this understanding of ourselves that we haven't connected with yet that we know lives there. And um, I guess that's what I relate that to within myself.
Yeah. It was a recipe for disaster too, because when I was allowed to be stubborn, it was celebrated. Like, I was a freshman and so resistant to like, I was like, I'm an abstract artist, and everything I was making was celebrated. Like I didn't even have Barbara Moody yet, and she saw me working on this painting. And she's like, you should exhibit this." I'm like, "I know, it's good." Like, like I don't need to draw people. Like,
Oh my
I
gosh. I did
like
not have that mentality at
I
that
was
stage
so
in
like, if
college.
you guys all just let me do what I want to do, I promise it'll be so good. And I shot myself in the foot because
Yeah.
um, I did like some kind of waiver. Like as a painting major, you have to take printmaking, and I did a waiver. Like I never took a printmaking class, and I wish I did, but it was a stubbornness. Like I'm only gonna paint, and
Mm,
I think if I had more of an openness to life drawing, observational drawing, printmaking, like I don't. I know this about myself now as I'm older, that I tend to want to laser focus on one thing and be really great at it and
mhm.
defend it like with my life. Like,
Yeah.
no, I know myself.
Yes, it
And I
does.
don't really like the
No.
journey is trying to get to know myself, and you only
Yeah.
will be able to achieve that through exploration,
Yeah.
like trial, error, failure, like
Yeah,
everything.
exactly. And I don't think we'll really ever like arrive. I think like we will notice that we've learned something and we
Yeah.
notice that we have like some sort of like expertise in it. Kevin, we're already experts.
Yeah,
We
I
already are.
like you
It's
said,
just, yeah.
you notice as that's the biggest
Yeah.
point, is like I notice that
When you,
I now have an openness and a desire to make prints and to draw from life
yeah.
and to make sculptures. And undergrad could have been full of more exploration if I allowed that, but I didn't.
Mm,
And that's a lesson I learned
yeah.
as I got older.
Well, I noticed that we're probably like running out of time.
Yes, we're about at an hour.
Okay. Um, is there anything that we'd like to say? Why don't we show the last thing we made in a sketchbook?
Gosh. So I don't know about you. I don't work like sequentially. Like I just pull out a random
Yeah,
page. So
or
I have
whatever.
to, yeah, I have to like kind of flip through like what was the last thing? But as I do that, like I just wanted to say like to answer my own question, like
Hmm.
what I want my sketchbook to be, and echo what you said. Like
Yeah.
I want it to be a journal. I want to take it with me. I want to mark moments and fill
Yeah.
it with memories. Like
Yes.
when I flip through the sketchbook, like I did with this conversation, I was more excited to see a list pros and cons from looking at grad schools. I was more excited to see the sketch that Devin and I did of each other than
Yeah.
to see those drawings. So I wrote, just to end it, I want to
Yeah.
make a sketchbook without a single painting in it.
Yes.
So I think that's where I'm at now, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna look for like the last thing I made in here.
I
Do you
love
have
it.
yours ready? Do you remember these? Look at these. This
No.
is how old the sketchbook is.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, that's such an old sketchbook.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. I do have mine, but I also just wanted to show you this quick drawing of you that I did on one of our summer conversations that
I
we
think you
had.
showed me that. Like
Yeah.
it looked, I'm having like deja vu.
Yeah. It was
I
just
love
like,
it.
yeah, it was before we like started recording them. I just was like, I'm gonna draw you because that's what I'm doing right now. But no, the last thing I drew was what I told people about my blog, which I drew an orange, and it's not even done yet, but this is just like what it looks like.
I love it.
It has like a really profound nipple, which I appreciated a lot.
I love a profound nipple,
Me
honestly.
too. Honestly, it's like the bigger the better.
I can't remember. It's one of two of these. So quickly, I have this, like I was thinking about these circular panels, and I actually reached out to someone to possibly build them. And I was thinking about like, the marks I make are circular, and like, what if the form was circular? And
Yes. And what if you kind of like blew it up?
yeah.
And wow, I love
The
that.
other thing was December when my brother and my mom visited, and for some reason we were
Wow.
drawing feathers. So I drew some of these, my mom drew one, my brother drew one, and then we started drawing on each other's. So this page is just like,
It's collaborative. It's a
I can't
family
even,
collaborative piece.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
my mom drew like this one. I don't know. We were like scribbling on each other. So that's like a really fun thing. I don't know
Oh,
why I like pulled up my sketchbook. I'm like, let's draw together as a family.
that's really cute. I just imagine all three of you just surrounding it and like having a really cute family moment. So I really appreciate that you
Yeah.
shared that with me. Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to showing more, as I know you are this week, like
Yeah.
in the blogs and the vlogs. Like I found some sketches from high school that I'm going to show. I'm going to show some
Wow.
more sketchbook stuff. So
Yes.
that's the theme of this conversation. And I think
Yeah.
everything else we're going to put out.
Yeah. Thanks
Yes.
for everyone who has for like just subscribed in the past couple of weeks and those who have been with us since the beginning. I also just want to share our appreciation for those who really are watching and listening and interacting. And yeah, I just want to say thanks because it's really fun to see like new subscribers come in, and especially those that are not familiar faces. So it's exciting.
Yes, I also echo that. Thank you all
Yeah.
so much.
Yay. All right, Kevin. Well, until next time.
Until next time.
All right. Bye.